In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Thanks, Lisa. Today we're joined by Becky Bell, author of The Gnomes of Fibberton. In her picture book debut, Becky takes young readers on a magical journey to the hidden world of Fibberton, where whimsical gnomes teach the importance of honesty through fun and fantasy. A homeschooling mom from Northern Virginia, Becky draws inspiration from her own children to create stories that capture imaginations while reinforcing timeless values. Becky, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
Tell us about the Gnomes of Fibberton and what inspired you to write it.
The story came about it was probably over a decade ago. I had a niece that it's Christmas time and she was fibbing about something. And her mom was complaining that she had been lying a lot lately. And I had the idea just come into my head, and I told her that there are little gnomes that are listening and they're counting all of her little fibs. And if she hits a certain number, those fibs, they'll come and carry you away to Fibberton. That's where the story started. That was the inception of the story.
And why gnomes?
For me, gnomes are like innocuous, little unintimidating creatures to kids. They're not like, there's a lot of monsters, I think, in today's day and age, in a lot of kids' cartoons and in books and stuff. And I just thought they were a little nicer. They would be easier for kids to deal with.
World building is the most fun and perhaps the most complicated part of any fantasy project. How did you create Fibberton?
Fibberton, the name came from fib, right? Fibberton, where fibbers go. Fibberton. It just popped into my head. But then I came up with the idea to, what do they do in Fibberton? They'll probably do things kids don't want to do, right? Eat vegetables and do a lot of chores. So it came about that they're doing the chores that kids lied and said they did, but never did. And they're eating the vegetables kids lied and said they ate, but never ate. It's cute. It's a funny way to introduce the topic. I tried to make it humorous.
There's a QR code on the book that takes us to a tool that reinforces the lessons. Tell us about that.
I came up with this song because my kids they were obsessed with this one Sandra Boynton book that I had on the shelf. They're these awesome little board books. If you haven't seen a Sandra Boynton book, they're fantastic. I own so many Sandra Boynton books, but the kids were obsessed with this book, and somebody had made a little cartoon to go with the book, and it was a song. And my kids always pick that book off of the shelf because they want to hear the song. And coincidentally, the song wasn't made by Sandra Boynton, or I don't think anyone she knows. Like, it's not connected to the book. We just found it on YouTube. So I came up with the idea to put the QR code in the Gnomes of Fibberton book to a video that goes with the book so that kids will want to read a book, make it fun and engaging for them.
Becky Bell is our guest. We're talking about her debut book, The Gnomes of Fibberton. Have you always been interested in writing?
I've not always been a writer. I just came up with the story, and I told the story to my children as they were growing up, and then they would make games and play pretend based on the Gnomes of Fibberton. And they would even tell their friends about it. And they would all just start playing games and playing pretend. And it just caught on to a point where I'm like, just about every kid we tell the story to, they like the story and they start playing pretend, and it gets their little imaginations going. And I love seeing the kids start playing pretend. It's one of the funnest things about being a mom. So anyway, that's what provoked me to write it down, though, because all the kids seem to really like it.
How did the Gnomes of Fibberton find its way from your imagination onto the printed page?
I have to say, I created my own publishing company to do this.
You rolled your own, as we say in the business.
My husband had a little bit to do with it. I had to interest him a bit, too, because they had to get him on board. But I dedicated a lot of time to creating a publishing company and figuring out how to do all of this. And I was a business person before I was ever a book writer or author, right? My husband and I have run some companies in the past. We started, I think, back in like 2010 with our first company. But we're finished with all these other companies we were doing. And I guess I was like 6 months into boredom. Not so much boredom as I'm a homeschool mom and I have 3 small kids at home. But I didn't have a business that I was working on also. And I guess I just wanted to do something. I like having my kids see me also doing work and stuff.
And you named your company the Incomprehensibly Unimaginable Consortium. Where did that come from?
That's a good question, and I don't really have a good answer for it, unfortunately. Kind of happened, and I shortened it to IUC. So EYOUSE is what we go by. But yeah, the Incomprehensibly Unimaginable Consortium, which is, the bank loved it when I told them, when I opened a bank account and the name, they were just like, you can't write all that on a check. So you'll have to just keep it to Incomprehensibly Unimaginable. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I have a history of doing that, making complicated names for companies. I don't know why. Something I've always done.
You told me before we went on the air that this is the first in a series of books you intend to write. Why did you choose honesty as the first topic?
The huge part of the book is that it is about teaching honesty to children. And in today's day and age, I think that's really important, especially with social media, the internet, all of the things that our kids are exposed to from a fairly early age. Even if you wait to expose your kids to certain things, I think that's why this book's kind of so important, the teaching honesty to small children, so that you get that foundation in there and get them really critically thinking, do I want to deal with the consequence of telling the truth or not telling the truth here? What do I get them to actually think about it ahead of time? And it makes them I feel like it can definitely make somebody more soberly make decisions.
The book is The Gnomes of Fibberton, and we're in conversation with its author, Becky Bell. As an added bonus, the book includes a QR code that will direct young readers and their parents to the songs she's been telling us about. You can learn more about her and the book at Fibberton.com. That's an ideal website name.
Yes, and I saved the domains for a couple of different Fibbertown. Like I had to get the domains so that no one could get around Fibberton. It is all ours. It's all mine.
How old do children have to be before they can understand the concept of honesty?
Oh, I think that they understand almost as soon as they're able to speak. They understand what a lie is. If you've ever had a little one who has something as simple as has dirtied their diaper, and you say, "Did you go to the bathroom?" or is your diaper dirty? And they're like, no. Instinctively, they will say no, even if they have gone. So it's a very early concept, I think. Kids, like, as soon as they can speak, will say, no, I didn't do it.
What do you think makes the Gnomes of Fibberton so effective in communicating that message?
It's not preachy, right? The book isn't just like a parent saying, don't lie, always tell us the truth, blah, 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 blah. See, I even said blah, blah, as if it was boring and preachy. But in the book, it makes it fun because there's these innocuous, innocent little creatures watching, and it provokes their thought process. It's provoking their imagination. It's making them think, oh, I wonder if there is someone or something there listening. Am I going to get caught? Did somebody see me do it? And then in the end of the thought process also, do I want to deal with the consequences of whatever it is that I have done or done? And then the song, of course, makes it funner. They get to watch a little cartoon.
How did the story coalesce into a song and then into the book?
So before I wrote the words down to the book, I always had the story and I would say the story loosely, and it would evolve and change a little bit as I was saying it verbally. But I did decide that I wanted to do a song, and I just came up with this jingle. That's what gnomes of Fibberton do. And they washing the dishes until they look new. That's what gnomes of Fibberton do. Mopping the floors and scraping up goo. That's what gnomes of Fibberton do. But it wasn't in my voice, right? In my head, I heard somebody with a deep crooner kind of voice. I went on Fiverr and I found a gentleman who had this deep bass voice and could sing it. And it was, he did way better than I ever could have. I am not a singer, and it turned out really great and super catchy. And once you hear it, it really gets stuck in your head. And the kids would go around singing the song. And then I'm like, okay, now I have to really put the book, like I got to put the words down to the book, and I got to put this little song in the book. And then I made it, also went on Fiverr, and I found someone to make a cartoon to go with the song. So there's now the cartoon where the gnomes are singing the song and everything. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a really fun process.
What advice do you have for parents who want to use a book like this to teach values?
Personally, at the end of the story, when I'm reading it, when I read it at libraries or read it to friends, I always tell parents, and I tell the kids alike, it's really important to be honest with your parents. The gnomes of Fibberton aren't real. And I tell the kids that when I read it. I do tell them the gnomes of Fibberton aren't real, but that they need to be honest with their parents and not keep secrets from them, especially if someone wants them to keep a secret from their parents. That's when they should especially be honest with them. That's the message I always share when I read it.
Becky Bell is our guest. The book is The Gnomes of Fibberton. Information available at Fibberton.com. I love that website. What's been the feedback on the book so far?
I have heard some funny things from parents after they have read this book. I've had one parent, they actually wrote a review on Amazon about how after they read this book, and how the gnomes do all the chores when they go to Fibberton because they've lied. And one kid was like, "You must have lied a lot when you were little, Mommy." Because she does chores all the time now. Another kid completely made all these confessions at the end of having the book read to them. The parents told me that they confessed all these lies that they had apparently been keeping. So I've heard some pretty funny things. Apparently it does evoke confessions. I had my niece, when I told her the story, she said that she would just kick the gnomes. That was her response.
What do you hope children and parents will take away from the Gnomes of Fibberton?
Oh, good question. That being honest will make you a happier person. And that it is not as hard as it may seem to tell the truth, especially for young children. I hope they learn that from reading the book, that that consequences for telling the truth are not as bad as it may seem. It's not as hard as it may seem to actually be honest, and that you'll be happier because you did, and you won't have that guilt and feel really miserable because you're holding on to something that you weren't honest about.
The book is The Gnomes of Fibberton, and our special guest has been its author, Becky Bell. You can find her debut wherever cool books are sold and learn more about her work and her story at Fibberton.com. Becky, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. You were so very sweet.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.